Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the origins of Christianity, as well as the journey of evangelism, integration into Vietnam. Let's get started. First of all, the gospel. It wasn't originally a separate denomination. It's a reform movement that came out of Christianity. Religion was born in the Middle East, the land of Israel today, about the 1st century. At that time, Jesus, a teacher and a preacher, appeared among the Jewish community. You don't just preach. He also performed many miracles. Call people to repent and believe in the good news. He claims to be the one sent by God, bringing the good news of love, forgiveness and salvation for humanity. However, his teachings and actions, that came into conflict with Jewish religious leaders and indirectly shaped the political order that the Roman Empire is protecting. That's why in 38, Jesus arrested and crucified on 10 crosses as a warning to those who challenge the empire. If you are interested, you can watch the video, The Whole Life of Jesus Himself, to link in the description. After Jesus died on 10, faith is not lost, but also a very powerful lamb. Thanks to apostles like Peter and Paul. With enthusiasm, they went everywhere spreading the good news, bringing Christian teachings from the small Jewish region to the center of Western civilization, the heart of the Roman Empire. In the early centuries, Christians in the face of severe persecution, many were executed for openly believing in a God. It wasn't until 313 that a historic turning point Emperor occurred. Constantine converted from polytheism to Christianity. I'll talk more about this in a video, talk about Catholicism later. After his conversion, Emperor Constantine issued a decree of Milan, legalization of Christianity, and end the persecution of all Christians. This decree doesn't just recognize religious freedom, but also return the confiscated property to the community periodically. It allows them to build churches and preach openly. From here, Christianity flourished. Until the year 3, Emperor Theodosius issued a decree and thus officially declared Christianity is the state religion of the Roman Empire. This prosperity also sows for big changes. In 395, the Roman Empire was divided into two parts. The capital of Western Rome was Rome, and the capital is Constantinople. This divide is not just political. It's also had a profound impact on religion. In Eastern Rome, influenced by Greek culture, Christianity gradually formed orthodoxy. Meanwhile, Western Rome maintains the Roman Catholic tradition. This process happens gradually, leading to a marked difference in theology and practice between two branches over time. The difference between East and West is deepening, and eventually led to the Great Schism of the East and West, 1054, when the Pope was in Rome and the Patriarch Constantinople officially severed ties. This event officially divides education into two major Roman branches, Catholicism in the West and Orthodoxy in the East. Both see themselves as guardians of the faith, and it's an orthodox continuation of Christianity. The conflict in the church doesn't stop there. 16th century in Europe, a powerful wave of religious reform exploded. It's the rise of the bourgeoisie. Discontent with the wind, backward ants were the God and nobles associated with the Roman Catholic Church to consolidate power. A Roman Catholic Church criticized for abuse of power, with many bishops and priests living far away from the age. It is the opposite of the simple life that Jesus taught. What makes people angry the most is the church lets buy forgiveness. It's called selling pardons. People can pay money to be promised that the soul will suffer less in purgatory or be reduced in sin. This is considered by many to be a crime, abusing trust for profit. This is what happened on October 10, 1517. Martin Luther, a German monk, has posted 95 theses on the door of the church in Wittenberg, challenging the power of the Roman Catholic Church. Luther argued that the Bible was the highest authority, and only genuine faith in Jesus. It brings salvation, not using money to buy it. This idea was inspired by the Renaissance movement, which upholds human values and freedom of thought. Poetry is not alone. In Switzerland we have Zwingli and then John Calvin in Geneva. They also develop innovative ideas to lay the groundwork for different branches of the gospel. Germany-wide land rapid reform movement. Switzerland, Britain, and Northern Europe attract large numbers of supporters. However, at that time, the Roman Catholic Church responded very strongly. The poet was unjustly removed, and conflict escalation into political conflicts, religion. It culminated in the 35 Wars from 1618 up to 1648. One of the most devastating wars in history. Europe. It started out as a conflict between Roman Catholicism
Happened in
and
Germany.
Protestantism. The war then dragged on countries like France, the British Netherlands, and the Holy Roman Empire. As a result, millions of people died as a result
Hunger
of the
and
war.
disease.
An estimated 23 to 10% of the European population.
According to some
historical documents. As a result, Roman Catholicism in the West was divided. On one side is Roman Catholicism, remain loyal to the Pope and keep the old tradition. Over there are the Reformists. It's called the Good News, based on Martin Luther's ideas, John Calvin and many other reformers. The name of the gospel in Vietnamese, usually used to refer to groups of the movement. This name comes from the English word evangelical. It comes from the Greek word evangelion. It means good news or gospel. Out in history, those who stand up against the wrong deviations in the church. Catholics are also known as Protestants. It means a protester. In Vietnam, both of these concepts are often referred to by the same name. It's a gospel that emphasizes faith, based on the Bible and salvation through faith. After the Reform movement, there are many Protestant denominations that have been born, Presbyterian elders. It's based on John Calvin. Emphasize collective leadership. Baptists only baptize adults. And really believe in God. Methodist manager. Appeared in you. Focus on personal ethics and social work. 5 weeks Pentecostal, emphasizing a personal experience with the Holy Spirit. Pray for healing. Lutheran Mennonite. Adventist Charismatics and many other groups. Each group has its own organization and theology, but they're all from the gospel family. So when did the good news come to Vietnam? Really, the first traces of missionary activity, good news in Vietnam, appeared quite early, even though it's disjointed and unorganized. 1688, William Dampier, a sailor and explorer, the one who supposedly carried the Bible, when visiting the southern part of Vietnam today. However, this activity is only personal, and it doesn't leave a visible impact. 1847, Charles Gustloff, a German missionary working in Asia. I also visited the land of Anna, bring Christian books and materials, in the hope of sowing seeds of faith here. However, his activities are also sporadic, has not created a substantial foundation. 1887, Albert Benjamin Simpson, founder of the United Evangelical Missionary Christian Society and Missionary Alliance. It's called CM. When I was studying evangelism in China, wrote in Word magazine, Work and Word rang. The kingdom of Annam needs to be evangelized. Simpson did not go directly to Vietnam, but his call was seen. It was one of the first voices, call for a methodical mission in this land in the Western Protestant world. There were such early attempts, but not until 1911. The evangelical mission in Vietnam, it's officially started in a systematic way, when the evangelist Robert Jeffrey of the United Evangelical Missionary Society Hostler and Lloyd Hughes set foot in Da Nang. At that time, Da Nang was called Turin, under French colonial rule. This event is considered an official milestone to mark the presence of the gospel in Vietnam. So Sao Da Nang was chosen as the starting point. After a survey period, Jeffrey noticed Da Nang. It's an ideal strategic location. Located in central Vietnam, Da Nang is the gateway, connecting north-central south, with busy seaport and convenient transportation system. This city is not just a commercial center, an important administrative, but there's also a large population, with the French-Vietnamese community. The presence of the Ho community in Da Nang allow Jeffrey take advantage of the missionary experience where you used to operate before learning Vietnamese to reach native speakers. Shortly after arrival, Jeffrey and his associates getting to know the local culture, learn Vietnamese to share the gospel. Sao for closeness, easy to understand and suitable for indigenous people. Only after a short time, in 1912, they held their first meeting in Da Nang. There was also an event on this occasion, stamped for the first Vietnamese believer. Although the meeting is simple, it has a calendar. It is the official presence of the health in Vietnam. From that starting point, United Evangelical Missionary has not stopped expanding its operations. In the years that followed, the society sent more than 100 missionaries to different parts of the country, from Da Nang Hu to Saigon and Hanoi. Not just preaching the gospel, the clergy also contributes to the building of local churches, open a school, set up a medical station and a printing house, to serve the long-term mission. One of the achievements most prominent in the early stages, it was the founding of the Da Nang Bible School in 1919, with the goal of training Vietnamese pastors and staff, prepare for a generation of indigenous leaders in the future. However, Under French rule, the gospel faces many difficulties, more limited than Catholicism, because Catholicism has been present in Vietnam since the 16th century. And I'm very close to the missionaries. France should be favored by the French colonial government. Meanwhile, the good news, led mainly by missionaries from the United States and Canada, they are considered foreign. They have a lot of administrative restrictions, lead to obtaining permission to operate or build a lot of waiting. The good news has made significant progress though. 1927 marked a historic milestone, when the Evangelical Church, formerly the Vietnamese Protestant Church, established at the General Assembly in Da Nang. The church is organized on 3 principles: self-governing, self-nourishment, self-supporting, self-governing, self-propagating, to build an indigenous church, not entirely dependent on foreign clergy. Up to this point, it has about 4,236 members and 74 congregations, mainly in Vietnam and some in Cambodia, showing rapid growth in less than 25. By 1928, the French officially licensed to about 30 pastors. News activities in Vietnam. This is an important turning point. Help the gospel. It is recognized as a legal religious entity, next to the United Evangelical Society, Adventist Church of Christ, Seventh-day Adventist Church. It also began to appear in Vietnam at the end of the century. The first missionary of this cult, ranking Wentland to Saigon in 1929. To 1930 Adventist Church. First established in Saigon, with signals including Vietnamese, Chinese and French 1932. This cult was established by the South Korean government and distribution of religious material. Adventist Church of Christ, featured with emphasis on SA 8-day teachings, seventh healthy diet, and social activities, such as education and health. After the August Revolution, 1945, Vietnam gained independence from the French, but the country has entered a period of upheaval, with wars and division into 2 regions, after the Never 1954 agreement. This division has created very different conditions on the growth of the gospel in the North and the South. In the North, the gospel grows slowly, controlled by the government, close to religious activities, under the Viet Minh government, and later, the government of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. The missionary activities of the gospel, it's mostly led by foreign missionaries. Strictly restricted. Many missionaries of the United Evangelical Society, forced to leave the North. Historical context at the time, it forces the North to control and limit the spread of religions, especially those religions that are associated with the gospel says. The number of believers and congregations in the North, activities mainly take place in small v. The secret is the opposite. In the South, the gospel flourished from 1954 to 1975, thanks to a more open political environment and support from international mission organizations, especially the United Evangelical Society. Government of the Republic of Vietnam, under the protection of the United States, has created favorable conditions for religious especially activities. The good news. It is considered part of efforts to counter the Viet Minh's influence, and later, the government of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. Missionaries from America, Canada, and other countries continue to the South, bring with financial resources, modern human resources and media, to advance the mission. But the biggest contribution from the United Evangelical Society. They take advantage of modern media like printing and publishing. They set up printers to produce Bibles, newspaper, gospel and missionary materials in Vietnamese. These documents are widely distributed to help reach even the most remote rural areas. Use the radio to broadcast the news radio programs as the voice of the gospel. It's broadcast from stations in Manila, Philippines, and was warmly received by the people of the South. These programs don't just share doctrine, it also provides information about the social activities of the gospel. Building and expanding more Bible schools, medical stations, and pastors' training centers. For example, Nha Trang Bible School was established in 1956 and become an important training center for the pastors native outside the United Evangelical Missionary Society, other Protestant denominations, and the Adventist Church. It was growing during this time in the South. About the Baptists, the Baptist missionaries, mainly from the Southern Baptist Missionary Society. It started operating in the South in 1959. They focused on forming churches and building educational institutions. What about the Adventist Church? As mentioned in the previous section, it flourished in the South after 1954. With activities like opening a hospital, school, and the Voice of Hope radio show. To 1975, the Adventist Church has about 30,000 members, 35 pastors, and 42 major congregations, concentrated in big cities like Saigon and Da Lat. To 1975, the gospel in South Vietnam has achieved significant growth, With about 187,000 the gospel spread across the South, and some limited activity in the North, belonging to denominations such as Baptist Evangelical Mission, 5 Weeks Adventist, and so on. The total number of churches in the South is about 530, nearly 190 pastors and 167 with more than 155 missionaries serving. This growth is due to many factors. International support from mission organizations, the positivity of native pastors, the same spiritual needs in the context of war and upheaval. After the reunification of Vietnam in 1975, under the leadership of the Provisional Revolutionary Republic of South Vietnam, and then the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, religious activities, including evangelical, once again faced with many great challenges. The new government, implementation of social and religious reform to strictly control religious activities, especially those religions that are associated with the West, which had flourished in the South before. During this period, many Protestant churches, especially in the South, confiscated or converted for the purpose of use. As part of the property nationalization process, public missionary activities strictly restricted, and many foreign missionaries of the United Baptist Evangelical Missionary and Society, the Adventist Church was forced to leave Vietnam. Pastors and indigenous believers must operate in difficult conditions, with many churches being dissolved or switched to covert operations. The number of Protestants has dropped significantly, and infrastructure like schools, hospitals, or printers of evangelical organizations, it almost doesn't work. Even so, good faith is not completely extinguished. Many people continue to maintain their faith through private prayer sessions at home, laying the groundwork for a new model. It's called the family church. Since the late 1980s, especially since 1988, family church model, it's simple to understand that prayer groups at home began to grow strongly. It becomes an important feature of information in Vietnam. In the context of limited public activities, these groups are usually organized at the homes of the faithful on a small scale, from a few people to 10 people, and focus on prayer, read the Bible, and share the gospel. This image not only helps the gospel maintain its also presence, expanding its influence, especially in remote areas. The explosion of family churches. This is especially true in ethnic minority communities. In Dak Lak Gla Kontom, as the Idibana people. In northwestern Lao Tsai Sun La, as a Chimong ethnic group. But at SA, the family church was so successful. It's for spiritual needs. The ethnic minority community, they often live in difficult economic conditions, and it's deeply influenced by the rigid traditional customs. So when they find comfort and meaning in the doctrine, good news, especially the message of salvation and peace, people believed and practiced. Group points at home. It doesn't require complex facilities or official recognition. Make it easy to organize and maintain in the context of tightly controlled churches. In addition to the active participation of pastors, the gospel of the indigenous people in the preaching of the gospel has made an important contribution in the formation of and the development of local communities of believers. Thanks to a flexible and adapt to the circumstances. The gospel has gone through a difficult time, not just keep the faith. The Protestant community continues to grow. Both the organization and the number of believers. To the early 2000s, number of Protestants in Vietnam, especially in ethnic minority groups, it's estimated to be up to 10,000 people, with the appearance of thousands, small group point in the form of a family church, scattered all over the country. After decades of dealing with constraints and challenges, the Protestant movement in Vietnam has reached an important milestone. In 2004, when the Creed Ordinance religion is officially in force. This ordinance recognizes it is one of 16 legal religions in Vietnam. Mark the transition in the protection of the religious activities of the community. Believers of this recognition. It's not just about creating conditions for churches openly and legally. It also opens up opportunities. Let the gospel expand its influence. In the context of the house's religious the water policy is more open. Family churches continue to play an important role, especially in remote areas where religious infrastructure is limited. These group points are not just pray and study the Bible. It's also a community center where believers support each other in daily life. In addition to the gospel radio shows, as the programs of Phase Broadcasting Company, it's short for FIBS, continue to be effective, bringing the gospel message to hard-to-reach areas. According to the Government Religious Affairs Committee 2020 report, Vietnam has about a comma of 12 million believers. It is ranked 3rd or 4th among religions with followers, especially after Buddhism and Catholicism. At or after Cao Dai, more than 800 churches, and about 5,500 group points across cities across the country. This number shows Christianity is one of the fastest growing in Vietnam, especially in ethnic minority communities. The strong spread of the gospel in these areas comes from the simplicity and intimacy of the gospel. In accordance with the spiritual and cultural life of the people. The journey of Tin Vietnam is a testament to the power of Germany. Believe in perseverance and the ability to adapt in the most difficult circumstances. In the future, with the growing openness of society and policy, the Christian religion promises to continue to grow, contributing to the diversity and richness of Vietnamese religious life. So we've just taken a quick look at early Christianity and went through the and to the great turning point of the movement, Reformation, when separated from Roman Catholicism, until the gospel is specialized in Vietnam, and growing up to now. If you have seen here, don't forget to leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel to support more motivation to make videos. Next,